Welcome to the Straight Out of Home Video podcast, part of the Geeky Waffle Network. Okay, today we're talking about the 2022, that's the year, Pinocchio movie. This movie broke me. And there is another Pinocchio movie coming out, but this is the Disney version because this is Straight Out of Home Video. And I'm Candace. And with me is Krista, who I made watch this movie, and I apologize a lot.
What do you mean there's another one coming out?
Guillermo del Toro has one coming out.
Okay, that might actually be good. I'm Krista here, and for a moment I was paralyzed with the thought that they were going to make yet another one of these because this one was terrible.
Yeah, so Krista and I actually were spending the week together, and this movie came out, and I was like, you know what would be fun? If we watched an awful movie together because it just seemed awful from the trailers and the fact that they put it on Disney Plus instead of doing a theater release.
The problem is it wasn't like awful and haha, this is funny, it's that awful. It was just awful boring.
Exactly. Okay, so I think everyone is familiar with the original Pinocchio Disney movie, and this one is directed by Robert Zemeckis, who, if you don't know, directed Back to the Future, Forrest Gump, Castaway, these legendary movies.
That's why he got Tom Hanks in this. Otherwise, I don't think Tom Hanks would have done it.
Okay, here's the bombshell that I cannot believe. I feel like I've seen Tom Hanks in dozens of movies at this point in my life. This is the first time I thought he was bad. This is a bad Tom Hanks performance.
So that makes me think that they wanted him to act this way. The director was like, it's for children. Can you dial it up to 55? Because it was so over the top. It was not a great performance. He's used to being very subtle and doing amazing performances. And it's like he was a cartoon. It's like he was trying to be the cartoon character.
Yeah, it feels like one of those performances where there's no heart behind it.
Yeah, and the look they had for him as well. I'd say overall the movie looked good, but Tom Hanks had this Einstein hair and his mustache, it kind of looked like a hairy little caterpillar.
Okay, so let's talk about, okay, since we're talking about Tom Hanks, let's talk about a few other people who are in this. Jiminy Cricket is played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which I could not even tell. Like, I had to look that up and be like, who?
Yeah, it was like 1 minute into the movie and the cricket was doing the narration and then he was like literally talking to himself.
Yeah.
And I wrote in my notes that I'm already annoyed.
And also, like, Jiminy looked weird. I know they're probably going for like a real cricket look, but that just made him look weirder. And
yeah, it looked like he had a mask on I think they're trying to be too realistic. They should have gone with something in the middle.
Did they not learn anything from Lion King live action?
No, Candace, they haven't learned anything. Otherwise, they would stop making these boring remakes.
The only good performance, I think, is like Cynthia Erivo, who plays the Blue Fairy. She has an amazing voice. She has a theater background, but she only is in one scene.
Yeah, that was weird. I thought she'd come back at the end or something. You have somebody with that amount of talent, you'd want them to sing more. Yeah, I couldn't understand if this was actually a musical or not a musical. Like, there were musical numbers.
3 songs.
3 songs. Tom Hanks cannot sing in this, so I don't really think that counts when he sang.
Yeah, it was like a fake singing, like a funny kind of thing. Luke Evans was great. Luke Evans played the coachman, the evil coachman, and he was like 110% into the role.
Yes, I will say that once again, his singing is by far my favorite part of a live action Disney remake, including Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
So he was the coachman, and then he was like the workers at Pleasure Island. Like he's the guy giving them the beer or whatever it was.
Root beer, Krista, because this is
it was definitely alcoholic. Because at one time Pinocchio's like, oh, and then I drank something. I'm not sure what. So I'm like, it definitely was like a wink to the adults in the audience about that. But no, I thought Luke Evans was amazing. You wouldn't recognize him. And I think that's the only reason why they were able to cast him in another Disney remake, because he looks nothing like Gaston.
Yeah, I told Krista, I was like, I can't believe it. They performed magic. They made Luke Evans not hot.
Oh yeah, he was disgusting. Like his character was just like, and as I was watching his performance, I thought if this had been made 10, 15 years ago, they definitely would have cast Johnny Depp in this role. Like 100% that would have happened because it was some of the like flamboyant, some of like the waving of the hands, some of the like kind of
the drunk walk,
drunken whateverness. But I think Evans did a fantastic job in this.
Okay, so that's pretty much the main cast. Let's talk about some of the story choices they made in
Do we
this.
have to?
We do. So Geppetto has a backstory kind of now. He had a wife, he had a son also.
Both are dead.
Both are dead, which is just
sad.
Like Kristen and I were talking before when we were watching. I'm like, I don't know if this makes it better or worse that he was making a little boy puppet.
It makes sense, but it doesn't seem like the best coping mechanism because it's you trying to remake your dead son. That's creepy. But it's more understandable of why he's like yearning for the son so much.
Yeah. And he doesn't name him the same thing. Like Pinocchio is because he's made of
pine oak EO. It hurt. It hurt.
Also, speaking of Geppetto and his creations, whole thing is he's like a clockmaker, but he doesn't sell any of his cuckoo clocks, which makes no sense. Why are you making them?
Because his dead wife loved them so much that he won't sell them now. But I'm like, how are you making money to support you and your little boy puppet now? And he has a cat and he has a little fish that he needs
who has
to support.
Eyelashes. Cleo the fish, golden. Oh god, the CGI. I don't like insulting CGI when you find out like how much the artists go through and how underpaid and overworked they are.
I don't know. Overall, the visuals didn't annoy me as much as they have in a lot of other movies. So that honestly wasn't like the worst thing for me. I do want to say that I'm looking through my notes I wrote for this. And Candace, 10 minutes into this movie, I'm going to quote you as saying, kids will be bored by now.
Yeah, we were bored 10 minutes in. Krista's baby was bored. I kept looking at the baby who was doing the same thing, which was kicking him on his little play mat. And I'm like, this is more interesting.
It's true.
Your baby's more interesting than this movie, Krista. Put that in his baby book.
With that. I'll put that in the baby book.
More interesting than his 2022 Pinocchio.
What isn't more interesting than this movie? Like I said, there were a couple of people that gave some good performances, but overall it was boring. And I feel like those people could have been better utilized in something else that was like more worthy of their talent.
Yeah, Keegan Michael Key, who I think is one of the funniest actors, comedians of our day, like he is Honest John, and he wasn't really given much to work with.
It was weird, and I guess the animation for the fox did weird me out a bit because like he was like human but not human. I think it was just something where I don't know, just felt a little off. But yeah, I feel like again he could have been utilized so much better with somebody of that much talent. I
was looking online, I was like trying to see other people's opinions, and yeah, everyone's like, this is the worst. This misses what the original is all about, which I completely agree. Pinocchio doesn't make many mistakes. If you think about it, he goes to school. He gets kicked out because Geppetto didn't warn anyone that this walking, talking puppet's going to school.
Everybody has to register their kid at school. Just because he's a puppet doesn't mean you don't have to. It means you really need to. Otherwise, people are going to be freaked out.
Yeah. So Pinocchio in the original, he doesn't make it to school. He goes with Honest John. He has a choice, school or Honest John. He chooses Honest John. In this one, he doesn't really have a choice. He has nothing else to do.
And he wants to make his father proud of him. Exactly. And if his father had actually like taken him outside of the house before he sent him to school and taught him what different things are, including like things you find on the sidewalk.
There's a very long scene of Pinocchio looking at a horse poop.
He does. It was weird. I was like, oh God, please don't.
This is lasting way long.
So I'm like, if he doesn't know anything about the outside world. So I'm like, if Geppetto had done his fatherly duty and taken him out into the world and taught him like right and wrong, taught him like what horse poop is, then maybe someone like Honest John wouldn't have led him astray so easily.
Also, there were some of those, like, you know how like with some of these retellings, they're like, oh, let's put some modern jokes in there. And They're like, you could be famous, you could be an influencer like that. And they're like, what could his stage name be? And they're like, Chris Pine.
You died when that happened, and not in the good way. You were just like, ugh.
It hurts. It hurts.
I chuckled, but I think that's only because I had been thinking about Chris Pine the day before.
Oh no, yeah, no, it was perfect timing.
Yeah.
Just Chris Pine in that press conference, just staring. That's how he was when he watched Pinocchio and he found out there was a reference to him.
That's maybe exactly what was happening in that moment.
Yeah.
And now we're just figuring it out.
It wasn't the don't worry, darling.
We figured it out world.
He's like, I am worried about this Pinocchio movie.
So Pinocchio thinks he can become famous, and he thinks that will make his father proud of him, which is really sad. And his misadventures just continue from there.
Yeah, so he's taken to Stromboli, and the way I was like rewatching some of the original, and I realized the way he escapes the cage that Stromboli puts him in the original, the blue fairy helps him out and explains like you have to be good, you have to reminds him of the stuff because
she could have come back. They could have had her come back then.
But instead, in this version, he uses his lying to save him. So his nose grows and he was able to get the keys.
That's confusing.
Also, there's this little talk like Jiminy Cricket was like kicked out of his hive or whatever the grasshoppers have. At the beginning, he's like, don't listen to them. And I'm like, what did Jiminy do?
What did he do? And then what did he do in this movie? He was not helpful at all. When was he helpful in the slightest?
I feel like they barely talk.
Like they didn't have any type of relationship, and he was just stuck in a jar for half the movie.
Oh my God. Speaking of Jiminy, there is a point where there is a erection joke where the blue fairy's singing and there's a moment where his mouth goes open and his umbrella opens as well.
And his umbrella is on the ground. Like the placement of it is very suspicious.
Listen, I like a dirty joke actually more than normal people do.
It's true.
But a time and place, please. This was not the time, nor was it the place.
It was just awkward. Again, I think it was maybe a wink at the parents in the audience, but I don't know. It was awkward. So they escape.
They get picked up by the coachman. And again, it's all like this peer pressure. And it doesn't feel like Pinocchio, when he's in Pleasure Island, is really like behaving debauchery, like an ass. He's not really into it, but he's like, he's trying to be cool for friends, but like, it's not as much as it was in the cartoon when he was smoking, he was destroying stuff, he was drinking. Here, he just drinks a little bit of root beer. He goes on a ride, which looks cool.
And all these things were forced on them by the employees, who was, again, the Luke Evans character. So, yeah, he's not doing anything compared to his friend who is doing like everything.
The worst ever, yeah.
Yeah, he's not breaking the cuckoo clocks. There's a scene where all the kids are breaking cuckoo clocks. And he's like, oh no, my dad loves cuckoo clocks. I could never, and he makes them. I couldn't break one like that. So you see he's a very sweet boy. And he's not really doing anything bad, which I think is why his transformation is much slower than his friends.
Yeah. And the entire time, he's still not like 100% into this Pleasure Island thing. Still like sus of everything. Gets the ears and the tail, and he gets out.
He got enough to just be cute.
Yeah. And I like that they made the ears and tail part like wooden. It always creeped me out, like in the cartoon, that like he has like flesh ears, and tail.
Did they do something right, Candace? They did something right?
They did one thing right.
Woo! My God, it's amazing.
There is a new character, Sabina, who is a girl who part of the puppet show, and she has her own puppet who she has a puppet interact with Pinocchio, because Pinocchio's like, I don't trust regular people now. She can understand. Yeah. They put him in a cage kind of thing.
I thought she did a good job. It's just she didn't have a huge part.
Yeah. She was adorable. She was a great actress. She did some singing and dancing. Great kid.
So again, I feel like could have been utilized better in a different movie or in a different performance where she could be able to show off her skills more.
Yeah, and I bring her up because we see her again after he leaves Pleasure Island and he's looking for his father and like there's a sign being like, "Oh, he went out to sea," kind of thing.
Yes. Which, speaking of, we have Geppetto, played by Tom Hanks, in a boat. And immediately I think about Castaway, because as you said, same director. And my first thought is like, at least he has a cat and fish instead of a volleyball for company. Like, he's moving up in the world.
Who brings a cat and fish on a okay. This
A
guy has
fish that's in a fish bowl onto the open sea. That fish should not have survived. None of them should have survived, but especially that fish.
we're talking about a man who spent like 10 minutes with his son and then is like, okay, it's time to sleep. And then once they woke up, he's like, go to school. I'm done parenting.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I do have to talk about probably my favorite scene apart from, like I said, the Luke Evans singing part in this film here is coming up. So Geppetto's on the open sea looking for Pinocchio, or he's going somewhere, I think, to find him, right? We
Yeah.
don't know. It's confusing. And so Pinocchio goes after him and they start yelling to each other. And so Pinocchio does this huge info dump and tells his father, like, I did this. And Geppetto's like, you did what? I did this too. So like he just word vomits all over his dad, basically. And Tom Hanks at the end is like, you did all of that in one day? And I'm like, wait, what? This entire
this is
movie
supposed
has
to be
been
one
one day?
day.
That makes absolutely no sense. I did laugh during that scene, though. That was the one scene that I did laugh at. So
Yeah,
thank you,
'cause
Tom Hanks, for vocalizing, wait, what? It's been one day, because I honestly thought it had been like a week.
Yeah, because I feel like we see night and day a few times.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna argue. Maybe the Pleasure Island's always at night because it's when bad things happen, people get to be bad in the dark. Okay, that's
I
not
mean,
bad.
I'm just going to say he could have gone to school, but like, would he have done as much at school as he did that day not going to school? He lived a whole life. He learned valuable lessons. Could he have gotten that at school in one day? I don't think so.
Okay, so one thing he did learn was okay. So Sabina comes back and she's like, "Hey, we overthrew Stromboli, which was the plan she had without their puppeteers because he was a creep." And she's like, "Pinocchio, do you want to join us?" And he's really excited. He wants to go on tour, and then he decides
Mhm.
not to, and that's how he loses his donkey ears and tail because
Yes.
he's being unselfish because he's like, "No, I got to find my dad,"
That would have
which I
been
thought
hard
was
to
cute.
explain. Yeah, that'd have been hard to explain to Geppetto. Although he's a wooden boy that walks and talks, like what's a donkey ears and tail at this point?
Yeah, it's just an accessory. Monstro is like this octopus whale now, which
I
was
thought it was
interesting.
just a whale. Wait, what?
In this version, he's like got like tentacles too.
I guess I wasn't paying attention. I'll be honest.
Oh, speaking of Monstro, I tried to get Arzu, our co-host for Waffles, and tried to get her to watch the movie. She said no because as I found out in our Evolution of Disney Villains episode, she believes Pinocchio is a straight up horror movie. And you know what? I don't disagree completely.
Yeah, I could get on that train.
Yep.
You have all these things happening to little kids. It's showing these bad children being punished by turning into donkeys. But really, the children are encouraged to be bad. And then they're exploited. And then nobody ever goes back to save these poor children.
I really want to write like a horror revenge movie when Pinocchio grows up and he takes revenge on Pleasure Island people.
Maybe that's the new movie that's coming out. Maybe
Yeah, who
that's what he's
knows?
doing.
I want to talk about the ending. And I don't want to.
But we should. That's why we're here.
Yeah. So the ending, Geppetto seems like he's dead and Pinocchio is sad and he's like, come on, father, wake up or something like that. He wakes up and Jiminy does a little narrating again and it's like, that's the story of Pinocchio. Some say he became a real boy, but we don't actually see that.
There's this weird moment where second before the scene ends, they walk off and I'm like, wait, did his skin just turn into like real skin? But like I wasn't quite sure. So I don't know if they're implying he did or if they're leaving it up in the air where it like kind of looks like maybe it happened.
Yeah, because I saw the screen cap because I looked at it too. I was like, wait, what was that? What was that? Geppetto says something. He's like, oh, I shouldn't have wished you to be something you aren't, kind of thing. And you wouldn't have been able to do all that if you were a real boy.
So then that makes me think they didn't change him into a real boy. And then I had a friend who also watched this movie, also found it incredibly boring, and Tom Hanks having a terrible, terrible movie for once. And she didn't see anything that looked like he changed to a real boy at the end. So
It feels weird. This is what Pinocchio wants.
and why would the Blue Fairy have this whole thing about you have to learn these lessons, which he does, to do this, if it wasn't going to happen? Or have him seem like he chooses it. You know what? I'm happy as I am. My dad loves me. And have more of him accepting it, like as a kind of self-realization thing.
Yeah, if they explain that further instead of Geppetto being like, oh, I shouldn't have wished you were something else. And Pinocchio being like, yeah, you're right. You know what? I like who I am.
Yeah, exactly. Make the lesson full.
Yeah, make it super sappy, like a maple tree. No.
Oh no.
I was waiting for some. I'm trying to make some wood puns.
Candace. We already had to put up with pine oak EO.
Oh gosh, yeah. Jiminy has some nicknames for Pinocchio, and I'm like, you just met and you barely talked to this kid. How do you have nicknames for him?
I hope he gets fired by Geppetto.
He's so bad at his job. I feel like he was better in the original movie.
I feel like he was too. I remember him actually being a helpful cricket.
And talking things through with him. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do want to do a shout out to a couple of the Disney movie cameos in this film. The Cuckoo Clocks have several movie cameos, like The Lion King,
Woody from Toy Story and Bullseye. They have Donald Duck, Roger Rabbit, and Jessica Rabbit.
That was hilarious.
Is actually Robert Zemeckis' film also. he did Polar Express, which explains the creepy.
And another Tom Hanks film. Didn't he do like every voice in that?
Yeah, and also a Christmas Carol, which was Jim Carrey that time around.
There's only one Christmas Carol movie, and it's The Muppet Christmas Carol. All other Christmas carols are inferior and should not be watched. I will die with that statement.
Yeah, but it felt like the cameos were really overblown. It was too much. I really love the way Pixar does it with just a subtle character cameo, but this was like in your face, literally in your face. Okay, are you ready to play the Rotten Tomatoes game?
Yes.
Okay, what do you think the critic score was for this out of 100%?
Negative 30.
26%.
Oh, hey, I was close if you get rid of the negative.
Yeah. People say like not even Tom Hanks could save this. Even by Disney live action standards, it's subpar, which I agree. The other ones are at least entertaining in a way.
The thing I don't understand, I feel like the acting is better in all the other ones. Like even if it's boring, like at least the acting is somewhat better. Tom Hanks, like he's a good actor. Like I don't understand why they had him like go so over the top. I think if he had been a little more subtle in his acting, it would have like improved the character a lot.
And what did you think the audience score is?
Probably also around the 20 mark.
33%, which I'm shocked. It's very high considering. Everyone says it's boring, it's disappointing, a mess, digital horror, bad acting. And everyone is like bringing up they didn't know like Tom Hanks could be bad.
Yeah. And it just goes to show like not every movie needs a remake, especially one like this where if it's going to be a boring movie, don't remake it.
Yeah, and another person said too dark, too scary, missed the message of not telling lies and spent too much time on the dark, scary scenes, which I feel like there's like a very specific age range this is for. You can't show this to like under 5-year-olds.
But then I feel like older kids are going to be bored out of their minds like we were. So I don't really know who this was for.
It's for no one. Let's just put it that way.
It's for no one. It was for Tom Hanks' retirement plan.
Yeah. I've seen most all of the live action remakes except Dumbo because Baby of Mine or My Baby, whatever the lullaby song, makes me sob uncontrollably.
Yeah.
So I just refuse to do that to myself again. But of all of them, I feel like this is even worse than Lion King.
I didn't watch Lion King, I'll be honest, because I love the original so much. But at least I feel like the animation in Lion King was probably better, right?
Yeah, no, the CGI was awesome and it was interesting to look at least.
Yeah, it looked gorgeous.
Yeah, it just didn't do anything new. Just like this didn't do anything new. Except this one ruined the moral of the story or just didn't have one. Or if it had one, it got lost in all of that. I don't know what the point they were trying to make. And if we can't figure out what the point they were trying to make, how is a child supposed to?
Exactly. And something I feel like a lot of these sequels struggle with is like they need to be true to the original movie, but then bring something new to the table. And the bringing something new to the table is where they always really struggle. I think lots of times if they're like doing more diverse casting that's actually like accurate for the film, that's fantastic. But it's like in their story, that's where they have trouble, like bringing something else.
Yeah, at least with the Aladdin remake, they finally have the accurate representation.
Yes.
Which was awesome to see. So that's something at least. No, Mulan was really bad. Mulan ruined the tale, ruined the moral of the story too.
Mulan was also just messy. I wasn't quite sure what kind of movie they wanted it to be. I'd say I wasn't bored by Mulan though.
That's true.
I didn't really know what was happening, but I wasn't bored the entire time like I was with Pinocchio.
And at least with Mulan, they tried to do something at least a little different.
Yeah. It didn't work,
No.
but they tried to do something different. So kudos that they actually tried and just went for it.
Yeah, I think we'll have to do maybe on the Kiki Waffle itself. I'll have to watch that damn Dumbo movie and then rank them all. Overall, Pinocchio is not worth your time, even putting it on the background. It just watch the Luke Evans scene, maybe, and the Blue Fairy Cynthia scene as well.
Otherwise, just skip it.
Yeah, just those two musical numbers because they're talented performers. Tom Hanks, they didn't know you could do it, but
you let us down.
You let us down. The trust is gone.
It's okay. He's done. He's looking forward to retirement. He's ready to go.
He seemed like he had fun.
And I guess that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Okay, Krista, how can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Krista Geeks Out.
Okay, and you can find me at Candace is a Geek on Twitter, and you can find the Geeky Waffle at thegeekywaffle.com, Geeky_waffle on Twitter, and the Geeky Waffle everywhere else, including our YouTube, which we will have a review of the Disney Dreamlight Valley up probably by the time that you are listening to this. So yeah, check that out. And we hope you have a happily ever after until your puppet becomes a CGI boy. I don't know how to end that.